Hey everyone, my name is Ashley. Welcome to the Trinity Stamps YouTube channel. I'm so excited to be a part of this channel and on the design team for Trinity Stamps, and I thought I would use my first video here as an introduction to myself and my design style. I'm going to be using the Coffee with Character stamp set and coordinating dies today, along with the Caffeinated Sentiments stamp set. The card or the project that I'm going to be creating today is a three-dimensional card, and I thought it would be nice to take you from conceptualization all the way through to finalizing the card. So what I like to do before I even start to craft is sketch out my idea. You don't have to be a good sketch artist for this. You don't have to be good at drawing. As you can see, my sketch is a very, very loose interpretation of what the actual card will look like, but I do make sure to keep lots of notes with arrows pointing to what I'm talking about. That way I can follow along later on when the idea isn't so fresh in my mind. I also like to name my cards. That way I have an idea of what I wanted the feeling of the card to be. I will always use a 110-pound cardstock for my card base and my card front. It does make it a little bit heavier, but that's just my personal preference. And here I'm using a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of cardstock for my card front. I like the border that it gives. I like that it doesn't take away from the design of the card, but it does add a bit of interest. I'm going to be using my Misty stamping tool to stamp this, and that's because I want to make sure that I keep it on the same plane. And also I'll be stamping several things at once a couple of times throughout the process, and the Misty makes that really easy. You may notice that I went ahead and switched those stamps, the coffee pot stamp and the plate or donut stamp. And that is because for some reason in the moment I just felt like that was the right thing to do. I was very much feeling that I needed to switch the orientation of the stamps, so I did it. These things don't have to be perfect as far as go along with the sketch. It's just a loose idea of what I was thinking. That way I can remember it later on. I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink to stamp my images, and that's because I'll be Copic coloring, and Memento Tuxedo Black is a Copic safe ink or an alcohol marker safe ink, meaning that the alcohol in the markers won't make the Memento ink run while you're coloring. I'm stamping all of the images, again the donut and the plate, as well as the pot, onto a full sticky back post-it note, and I'm going to be using these stamped images for masks. And as you can see, I am just going ahead and placing the donut mask right over the donut stamped image on the card front, and then I'll be taking the plate and placing it where I think it would rest with the donut on top of it. It doesn't have to be perfect, but masking the donut off means that when I remove the mask from the donut, it will look as if my donut is resting on top of my plate. If I hadn't masked it off, you would see the lines from the stamped plate image through the donut, and you don't have that when you mask it off. So I'm going to go ahead and mask everything now because we're going to be creating our scene or making our background for the card. And as you can see, I sketched that out here. You can see a bit of a backsplash behind the images, and that's sort of what the idea was behind this entire card. I loved the feeling that maybe this was in a kitchen or a cafe, and it had that really clean looking backsplash behind it, and I imagined it in gray. So I'm taking my C3 shade Copic marker, and I'm using the chisel side because I feel like I can get a sharper line with that side of the marker. I'm also using a T ruler to make sure that my lines are straight, and I'm just creating these horizontal lines first that go from the left to the right side of the card, and I'm going just a bit above the coffee pot, and then I'm going down to where I think the counter would begin. And if I could do this again, or if I were to do this again, I'd probably stop right here, but I was having a lot of fun and I wasn't sure when I wanted to stop, so I added one more line. It doesn't really do too much, or doesn't make too much difference for the card, but just hindsight is 2020. So to make the actual tile look, I'm going to just go randomly and make these vertical lines just from one line to the other, and then on the next phase or where the next set of tiles would be, I'm going to go in between those lines to make lines. This is going to make it appear as subway tiles. And if you watch HGTV at all, you'll know exactly what that is. And you probably have some somewhere in your house, but it's just those sort of offset white looking tiles, and it's the way that they're set up. I'm going to use E33 here, and I'm going to make a bit of a counter butcher block look to my table. I am not an expert at Copic coloring or coloring at all in any medium, but I knew that I wanted to take different colors of brown and sort of stripe them through to make it look like a different grain of wood or a bunch of woods, is that technically correct? A bunch of wood all in one. So I made sure that I had 3 different shades of brown. I'm now going to take a coffee cup, the whipped cream, and the straw images and stamp them again with my Misty using Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And I'm going to go ahead and color through these images. For the coffee cup itself, I'm using E11, E21, and E00, and I'm making sure that I use the lightest color right in the center, as I imagine that's where the highlight on the cup would be. For the little emblem on the coffee cup and the straw, I'm using YG13, and for the whipped cream, I'm using C3. So I go ahead and take all of the coordinating dies for these images and place them correctly where they belong with a piece of blue painter's tape, and this is just to hold it in place so that it doesn't move around when it's in the die cutting machine. I love that all of the images in this set come with a coordinating die. It makes it really easy to put them together, which is what it's supposed to be used for. There's so many different things that you can create and so many different coffees and lattes and teas, and I just think that that's so much fun. I'm going to adhere them all together with some Tombow Mono Multi-Glue, and once I have the finished piece, I am going to adhere that right to the center of the full scene there with some foam tape. I'm using my Misty again and a grid transparency sheet to help me line up the words for my sentiment. The amazing thing about the caffeinated sentiment set is that most of the words come by themselves. So there's a million different sentiments that you can make by putting the words together. And I have decided to make "Have a Beautiful Day." I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp this because it is a very fine detailed ink and it's my favorite to use for sentiments. I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that that comes out nice and clean, and I don't even have to restamp it, which is always wonderful. And I did decide to bring out that butcher block a bit with some more of those brown tones, but I also used a colorless blender on the very edges just to make it look like it faded out from the picture a bit. To adhere my card front to my card base, I like to use craft foam because it doesn't leave those spaces that foam tape does. So I'm adhering the card front to it with some Tombow Mono Multi-Glue and then adhering all of that together to the center of an A2 size card base. Here is the completed card. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed the video. As always, links to all the products used are in the description, as well as my personal blog and YouTube channel if you're interested. Thank you so much, and I will see you again very soon. Have a great day. Bye.